Charles Scott started Camp Wawayanda in the year 1901. We had 16 years of history prior to that. But anyway, we started the camp on a lake called Wawayanda Lake, which was at the base of the Wawayanda Mountains, which was near the Wawayanda River. And guess where Wawayanda came from? Wawayanda means, it's a Lenape Indian word. It means wawa, that means winding. And yanda means waters. So if you go to Wawayanda State Park, which is 18,000 acres at this point, Wawayanda Lake is still there, and you'll see the rivers that are around there, and they wind. And that's where where Wawayanda came from. But Mr. Scott was the organizer of the camp. He lived in a wall tent. All the boys back then lived in wall tents. And he felt very strongly that his family should live in wall tents. That included his wife, who was a truly amazing person, and the children. They were extremely young when they first started in 1901. So they were always wanted to set good example for the boys, who were also living in wall tents. Charles Scott got involved with the Y at the age of 14. He was raised in New York City. At the age of 19, he got involved with the Newark YMCA. I can't remember his exact position. He's had so many different positions with different organizations. In 1910, he was one of the folks that got involved with starting the Boy Scouts. The very first scouting encampment was on an island in Wawayanda Lake. There are 5 islands in the lake. 3 of them are very tiny. 2 of them are sizable. One of those 2 islands is still called Scott Island today. So if you go to Wawayanda State Park and ask for a map, you'll see Scott Island on the map. In 1920, Charles was asked to go around the world and visit 24 different countries with the idea of trying to get camps established in those various countries. So Charles just lived a long life of dealing with young men and their young boys and their leaders, and trying to enhance their lives in every way he could. In 1954, he was 80 years of age, and that was my very first year at Camp Wawayanda in 1954. And that was our very last year in Andover, New Jersey. We moved to Andover in 1919 when the Thomas Iron Ore Company decided to sell their property and no longer lease the island and the mainland near the island to Camp Wawayanda. So we had to move. So we moved to Andover in 1919. We bought the Slater Estate. It was the first property that we owned. It was about 300 acres in size. I'm very thankful that today it's called Kittatinny Valley State Park. It was bought in 1994. And the nice thing about it is that it's preserved. Some of the buildings that were there when I was a camper in 1954 are still there, either in part or in whole. Last year was kind of fun. I took, we have an adventure village, and they go down the Delaware River by canoe. And after we did that last year, they would camp at a place right on the Delaware called Worthington State Park. We would drive 33 miles over to Andover, and we visited Kittatinny Valley State Park. And I broke the kids up into 3 different groups. I gave each group a map. They sat at picnic tables. It was a map of the camp, the way it looked in 1954. And I had them pick out different names that were on that map that we still use today. And that got them used to using the map. We were actually on our next door neighbor's property, Fred Hussey. You may have heard of Hussey Lodge. He was our next door neighbor. 1906, actually, his family bought the property next door to us. And in 54, he was our neighbor. And he's the one that actually bought our property from us in September 1954. And he bought it with the idea of developing an airport on the property. The airport's still there. It's the only park in New Jersey that has an airport on it. And the lake, which we named New Lake Wauwian in Andover, is the deepest lake in New Jersey. It's a natural lake. So anyway, as I said before, 54 was my very first year as a camper in Wauwianda. And the third day I was at camp, Mr. Scott came to the camp. He used to do that every summer. He'd come several times. Just like Fen. Fen's always up here. Every time I turn around, I see Fen. And it's such a pleasure to have the support that Fen and the Board of Directors has given us it for us, Allie. But I look at Fen as our modern day Mr. Scott. But anyway, unfortunately, as I sat there as a 10-year-old camper in 1954, eating lunch with my fellow cabin mates, Mr. Scott, who had come to see us, passed away at the table while eating lunch with the boys at the very next table. So two of the counselors carried him out in a chair, I remember that. And it was kind of a sad way to start, but anyway, I always kind of think that I've been involved with Camp Wauwian in some ways since 1954. And between Mr. Scott and myself, we have, one of the two of us has always been at Camp Wauwian ever since it started in 1901. So I'm kind of hoping that I can continue to carry on that tradition of doing good things for other people, just like Mr. Scott. So, thanks.
So we welcome Charles Scott into the Hall of Fame, and the lesson from that is don't have lunch with Fen.